How do the new access to quality transit calculations work?
Yes, thanks, Melissa. And the calculations are fairly similar to version 4, but if you remember back to what we did in version 4, we really made this credit about quality transit, so not just being located near transit, but being located near high-quality transit, which we have defined by as transit that comes more frequently. So transit that the occupants of the building are more likely to use because it does have higher frequency. So we've, for the version 4 requirements, we've had these out for the last couple of years, and we've definitely been learning some feedback and some lessons about how project teams are using this credit and where they're struggling. And I would say that the revisions to this quality transit credit do reflect that, and there's a few things that we've changed. So one thing is that we have added intermediate thresholds. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see the table of trips and the points that are available there. So previously there were only 3 different tiers. Now we have 5 different tiers for this in 4.1. So those intermediate thresholds do provide partial credit if you are in between some of those thresholds, which should help project teams. Another piece of feedback that we got over the last couple of years has been a struggle with meeting the weekend trips. So weekend trips was an important criteria to add to this credit because we wanted to make sure that there was transit available at all times, not just during business hours, because that's important for our community. So we did want to add the weekend requirement. However, we also got a lot of feedback saying that at times those thresholds were a little high. So we did reduce the weekend trip thresholds slightly. So that first tier is now at 30 trips, which is around 1 trip every 30 minutes or so. We've also clarified that you only need to count those weekend trips for one of the weekend days. So you don't necessarily need to have that frequency on both days, but you can count one day for the weekend to get those weekend trips. So typically, if you would not have transit on a Sunday, as long as you had transit on that Saturday, you could still count that towards weekend trips. So in general, this should make it a little more flexible and open the door for more projects to be able to get some points here and to earn higher levels of points from the quality transit credit. A few other things that we clarified. We did clarify shuttles. This is always a big question for our project teams. We didn't change the requirements in 4.1, but we did clarify that shuttles, if they're provided by the project building, can still count. They just need to be publicly available. So they do need to give access to the public for those shuttles, and those shuttles would just be considered, transit just like any other bus line for the purposes of meeting the requirements. And then lastly, we did clarify slightly the difference between a circular bus route and a sort of two-way bus route. And those are in 4.1 counted the same. Previously, they were counted that circular route was counted at slightly less of a rate than the two-way bus route. So that's a slight change there, but again, should give project teams more options and allow them to score higher in this credit.